Oh, what's to come, right? Oh, this is so good. Okay, what's up, guys? Welcome to the new unit impressions for Dancing Xander. Can I do this? Honestly, I cannot believe we've come to so many Xander alts and he still doesn't have a realistic version of himself that you can plus 10. All we have are memes. We have Summer Xander, Spring Xander, now Dancing Xander. Are you kidding me? I can't believe this. For those of you on Twitch, go ahead and say hello to YouTube. Give your love their way. Those of you on YouTube, feel free to put in the comments your best regards to those on Twitch. What we're doing today is we're going to give our first impressions on both the skills and the units, on what I think of these new seasonal units. And there is no precedent from last year for this, so they're definitely unique, and we'll get into it and I'll give you my thoughts for them. Of course, as I always say, this is a complete objective analysis, and I'm not trying to disregard anyone's waifus. If these are your favorite characters, then you don't really need to listen to me, you're probably gonna pull anyways. But if you're unsure, or if there's too much hype writing all this stuff, and your orbs might not be safe, then give me a listen and sit down for a bit, alright? Let's go. Emblem heroes in Hoshido summer outfits. So I guess it is like a summer seasonal, right? That's what they're considering it. A third banner of seasonals.
I hope that you and I can spend the summer festival side by side.
Oh, it's so he looks so stern. Look at those eyes, man. I hope we could spend it side by side. Okay, so he's an infantry dagger user. It's nothing too. It's not unique, obviously. There's plenty of infantry dagger users. But if we look at all the other versions of Xander, what is relatable is high defense, low resistance, generally high attack, low speed. So what does that mean he's probably going to be most like? Probably Summer Freddy. That's the most comparable thing. I like the art a lot, though. It really is. And he's showing just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, so what does all this new stuff mean? Okay, so first of all, dance, right? So we have new dancers. Yeah, if you are missing out on dancers, this is probably going to be one of the better ones to pull just based on the skills offered by him, right? One of the biggest problems I had with like performing arts banners or even other dancers in general, we talked about this with Azura, is like she has no fodder. You had like speed 3, fortify, res 3. Your other dancers from performing arts have nothing of value either. They have like TA3 and drive res on performing arts Azura. Dancers ring, dancers score. Like these weapons are like breath of life weapons. They don't really have some good fodder on them. It's all awkward stuff like blaze dance and stuff, and those only exclusive to dancers themselves. But this is how you do it, okay? When this guy shows up on a legendary banner, and even now he's going to be some pretty good fodder if you have a reason to go for Colas, close counter, quick riposte, odd defense wave, and a brand new dagger that specifically targets effective against cavalry. He brings so much in one unit. You can actually fodder him for close counter and quick riposte at the same time. All you have to do is kill off like a 3-star Tsubaki with QR 1, and boom, you just inherited close counter and quick riposte 3. What is new to the table is odd defense wave. Odd defense wave is similar to odd attack wave, and it works on certain turns to give you a defense buff. Now, this is super good for making sure that you give yourself buffs on a team that may not be having any sort of buffs running. And the thing with using stuff like Hone Attack or Fort Defense, Fort Resistance, or Hone Speed is that they're 200 SP skills, and if you look at scoring for arenas, you can't really afford to use those skills. You have to use 240 skills, and the odd skills are 240, and they're a good way of giving yourself a visible buff by only taking one skill. They're comparable to using tactic skills, but sometimes you can't use tactics because your team comp just isn't mixed. So odd defense wave is going to be really good for those frontline tank units, and I feel since Xander himself will likely be a very tanky unit, his kit is going to synergize really well. How I feel about the effective against cavalry thing? Well, let's just say the unit that he's about to dance right now might be why he has effective against cavalry.
I shall dance.
If you have some time, would you join me for a dance?
So before we continue on, I wanted to give a little small segment as to these units will likely be bonus units in the upcoming arena and the upcoming arena change, which means that you likely don't want to really be pulling them as bonus units because you would have to get about 3 or 4 merges on these units just for them to score comparably to a fully built Asker trio unit. Yeah, they're not really going to be worth using for arena bonus units. unless you do go all the way to plus 10, and I really don't see why you would do that for a dancer, because these dancers are likely going to have 140 BST like the other dancers did. Unless they do something crazy, they're going to be 140 BST like what Shigure and Inigo and Olivia, PA Olivia had. So yeah, it's very unlikely that you're going to want to be using these guys for scoring, and their stat spreads will be quite low. But since Intelligence Systems has been min-maxing them lately, I feel like you'll probably see some like 35 stat spreads with like 30 HP or like 10 resistance or something just ridiculously low like that to try to still min-max out of a dancer and make them combat units. What I didn't mention from the first dagger we saw, which was effective against cavalry, was the hardy bearing effect on it. You will not be able to combine the daggers that we're about to see with either desperation, and you will counter vantage on enemy units. This is both a pro and a con. If you've been having trouble with units that have vantage, especially if you use something like Savage Blow and you lower the enemy's health, it means that you don't really have to worry about it. But the dagger users that might be speedy and have low bulk, something like Gaius for instance, or Legault, or maybe have just like not very good bulk in one area, like Saizo's low resistance for instance, means if he hits like a dragon without desperation, he's very likely to die. And I don't really like that about the daggers. It's a very detrimental con for some of those speedy guys that could have ended up using the desperation effect. And this means you're just going to have an alternative B skill, like probably Wings of Mercy or Quick Riposte or Escape Route or something. And since they're effective weapons, you kind of want to use them on player phase. Anyways, here it is. Elincia, a new Tellius alt, and these are highly requested. I'm very happy to see something like this. Elincia is definitely a character I like a lot. Not to the point where I'm going to be pulling for any of these units, but definitely something I can appreciate. Green dagger though, that is cool. It's not a surprise to me because I know in the quest text it did say there was colorless dagger foe. You got to delete, you got to fight them, and there was in Kagerou's dagger breaker. If you read the text, it actually says colorless dagger foes. That's how the dagger breaker works, similar to how bow breaker only counters colorless bow units. So this is our first usage of green daggers. Unique unit types. We've always had these unique movement unit types before. We've had the colored bows before, which started with the Legendary Heroes. We had flying mages back with Spring Camilla. We've had armored mages coming out from seasonal units. This is no surprise to me that they want to make these units unique in one way or another. However, physical damage on range units with low BST, it's going to be likely even worse than like Legendary Lin in terms of combat utility. It's a good thing these units are all dancers, because otherwise I probably would have been laughing at what these units are potentially capable on a combat field. You'll likely be using them as dancers, or for the real reason, the skills that they offer and the weapons especially. So Elincia's Dancing Ike, of course. We never had this type of dance before, the Rock Slide dance. That's new and unique. I feel like it's not that useful. I mean, these B skills in dance are taking the same slot as Wings of Mercy, right? So they're not really that useful. Drive Res is the same thing that Performing Arts Azura had, but attack speed push on another unit, I can appreciate that. That's a very good skill on a lot of units. Somebody like Almond Celica definitely appreciate that when they're at full health. Healers can use attack speed push really well, so that's a really good fodder skill. And again, I really like that they're adding that as more options in the future. When we have legendary banners and these units show up there, we can hopefully pull them and not be disappointed that we get multiple dancers, right? You don't want to be merging them, one copy's enough. But yeah, definitely the fodder will be great. Now, and here's the most exciting part, effective dagger. Again, cannot be used with desperation and counters vantage, but effective dagger against dragons. This is huge because now you can inherit this to so many dagger users, especially ones with high attack, and effective weapons are exceptional on units with high attack. So Soth and Kagero inheriting this weapon already will be amazing. Okay, Kagero is in the 3 and 4 star pool. She has 35 base attack. Give her some attack buffs, the effective dagger that Elincia has, and boom, she's going to be countering all dragons very likely, as long as you can buff her attack enough and those dragons don't sit on defense tiles. Yes, I realize that dragons have really high bulk, really high defense, likely have stuff like Steady Breath, but with enough support, you can probably pull it off very easily. This is also comparable to the AoE build that I do use on Kagero, for instance, with Blazing Wind and a bunch of Infantry Pulse units, but this is easier to set up than that. It all just requires maybe like a Hone attack, a Drive attack, and ally support, and it's going to be super great. And I think this is a very common thing that people might ask, and are these daggers going to be inheritable to colorless dagger units? Or vice versa, are you going to be inheriting them to the other colored dagger users? The answer is a clear yes, and there's already evidence of this in game. If you look at Faye, for instance, can inherit Lightning Breath from Adult Tiki, or like basically all the breaths are interchangeable. If you look at Avgrima, she can inherit Dark Breath, Light Breath. The breaths are all interchangeable easily. You look at the colored bow users like Lucina, for instance, and Lyn, they can inherit their bows, well, not their legendary weapons, but they can inherit Brave bows, they can inherit Fire Sweep bows, so they'll all be interchanging the weapons, and that's going to make those units stand out. As for Elincia herself, I don't really think that she'll have the highest attack stat. Generally, she hasn't been known for that. I think the flying form of Elincia was kind of like an odd situation, but generally, Dancers, they don't have enough BST to make this work, and this is going to be one of the premium support inheritable daggers. Since she's a green, this means that she is technically a counter to Noe, which is a very common blue dragon. I guess you could say I have Korn and Mkana as well, but like you don't really see those as often. And I guess you could also try to argue that Grima, they would stalemate, but it's the same as using a colorless dagger. So basically she's effective against Noe, which is a really common unit. And that's kind of cool. That's kind of a niche that she may be able to have, to be able to counter that just with her default kit.
Let's do our best.
This outfit I'm wearing is called a Yukata.
Really, Ryoma? Actually, I learned something. I didn't actually know it was called a Yukata until he told me. Okay, so blue dagger user, and since we know these daggers will be cross-inheritable, before I even look at Ryoma's skills, I think blue dagger is something great, and not because we know that Lucina and Legendary Lyn are not that great as legendary units because of being a colored bow instead of a colorless bow, but what makes Ryoma really cool, beyond the fact that he's the first time he's getting a seasonal ult, is if you inherit that Dragon Slaying Dagger onto Ryoma, he will be the first hard, effective triangle advantage character against all the Tikis. Tiki did not have that weakness before. She did not have... Julia was with green, Daedra was with green, Falchions were all red, and the other Tikis, if they were fighting each other, were all red. So she never had a color disadvantage plus an effective weapon hitting her. This is the first time that happens, which means if Ryoma is going to have good offensive stats, which he pretty much always does in all his forms, if you look at the flying Ryoma, you look at the standard Ryoma, you look at his game. If you look at his game, this might as well be renamed Ryoma, right? Ryoma Emblem, Fire Emblem Ryoma, because that's pretty much what you do with Ryoma. He is going to have the greatest implications of hard countering a Tiki. Again, you won't even have to buff him that much. A Hone attack will do it fine. And since Summer Young Tiki just got released and she's very powerful, if you start seeing her at plus 10, Ryoma's going to be a very good counter to that. So I am excited to see how powerful he will be, but even though he has Dancer BST, as long as he reaches over 30-ish attack, he will have 80 plus damage against the Tikis, and Tiki will have to run a lot of stuff like Distant Defense, or a Steady Breath, and like Breath of Fog with the defense active to really survive a hit like that. And then she has the color disadvantage, so she might even miss the kill against Ryoma because he's taking less damage from Tiki. So that's insane. Finally a hard counter to her. She was one of the pretty solid, consistent units in the game, and Ryoma can finally do it with that effective dagger. Now his inheritable options aren't as exciting as the first two that we saw. The thing that does make him interesting is that he's actually has this new skill called Cancel Affinity Triangle Adept 3. If you look at the icon, well, you can now officially put Cancel Affinity in the A slot according to this video. I'm just kidding. Whoever made this obviously messed up the graphic here, and this is obviously TA3. But they put the Cancel Affinity icon there. Speed Res 3 is whatever. Chill Defense 3, now we already just had a legendary banner with Exalted Chrom on it. We already had a Wall Heart given to us 3 copies, and he had Chill Defense, so it's not exactly the most sought after skill, but I personally think that on the base kit himself, it'll be really good. Now, if you consider that Adult Tiki is going to be his biggest weakness, her biggest weakness will be Ryoma, and Ryoma already has this on his base kit. Tiki will most definitely die if a Chill Defense hit her, and he's inherited that Dragon Slaying Dagger. I wanted to take a quick look at the armor effective dagger, and I think it's interesting, but I don't necessarily think it's amazing, considering you can already run things like Cleaner, which is really good. You can already run things like an AoE build with Blazing Wind and do a lot of damage against them. I think the effective armor slaying weapon will be pretty good just because armor units are very common, but what really did shock me is that implication of a blue dagger user countering a unit that traditionally didn't have a hard counter. And yeah, at least you'll be able to give this again to Kagero or Soth, who will definitely be able to use it effectively. The dagger itself has 12 attack power, unlike Poison Dagger, which has 5, and Kitty Paddle, which had 8, I think. So it is due for those daggers probably to get a buff to them, because they seem to be falling behind. And especially the scaling on how effective weapons work, where you get 50% extra damage. 12 ends up giving like 6 bonus damage already to hitting armors, or dragons in that case. So like the bonus damage on these daggers is already more than Poison Dagger's default attack power, which is ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, these likely will be additionally refined on top of that. I think they'll be able to be refined, and you can probably refine them with attack and make the difference even higher. Hopefully they do give the option to refine them later. And the thing that's beautiful about these units is if they don't have a role, at least you can use them to dance. I wanted to overall say I'm very happy that they're trying to like make them dagger units good in the meta again.
So often different from what I'm used to.
That's cool. I wanted a Micaiah seasonal. This is cool. The art is also really good. She's a red tome infantry, which we do have a lot of, especially considering stuff like Mail Morgan and Darja is already in the pool, and they're pretty good. I'm not even going to talk about Ray, but this is pretty cool, at least from a fan service kind of perspective, and a lot of people love Micaiah, including me. She's actually from one of my favorite games. Not enough, again, like I said, for me to pull, but I'll respect the fact that this is definitely helping a lot of people out get their favorite characters have some seasonal outfits. So her weapon is a preference weapon. It will not be inheritable, but it is the exact same effect that Thani had. It does have that Vantage and Desperation effect removal as well, and it has attack 3 on it, which is a little bit different from Thani, but generally speaking, it is Thani by having both armor and cavalry effectiveness. If she ends up not being useful in a match, she can always dance. She comes with attack res bond, which the Soup Takumi had before, so that's cool as fodder. She has Resploy, which is still kind of hard to get on a unit if you wanted it in the C skill, even though it's in the seal. It comes off of like Sonya and Gunthra, and you don't generally want to fire off those units because they're good in their own right. And Fire Flood Dance is something new, but it's not necessarily anything fancy. I wouldn't necessarily consider it good skills. But attack res bond is good, and her as a unit is going to probably be the most good. Like, it's going to be the most effective unit in this bunch if you want to like actually use her in your core. We never had a red dancer that was a mage, right? We've had like a blue one, we've had a green one, we've had a colorless dagger dancer, but we've never had. We're going to have 2 colorless dagger lancers, obviously, with Xander and PA Olivia, but this means that this is also new. And like I said, seasonals always do this. So Micaiah's traditionally always had a high attack stat, so I expect her to kick some real butt. And of course, we have a Paralog, which will bring 12 orbs and probably some more contract nonsense for us to enjoy in. Loki's also hanging out. Okay, so let's talk about the banner itself and whether you should be pulling or not. I'm going to do a more in-depth mathematical analysis on the pull rates, but since this is a 4-unit banner, thankfully they're all different colors, which means you can kind of pick 1 or 2 colors and then go for that if you have a secondary choice and not be locked into like one color. It lasts a whole month. Okay, what things can we expect in the next month? Well, we have a legendary banner which will overlap with this. Last year's Choose Your Legends was done at the end of August, and this will go into September. And we still have a lot of unknown coming up. We don't know, maybe some new skill banners after the fighters banner. There might be some new updates that we might know about by the time September rolls around. So, like I always say, there's no real urgency to pull at the beginning of the banner, and especially not if you're considering a reason like arena bonus unit, because they are going to score terribly. So yeah, I totally am going to say hold out on it, maybe wait a couple of weeks, let the hype die down, give yourself the option of choosing between multiple banners, and make yourself an educated decision. If I'm going to give you some rough estimates, I tell you that you should have over 150 orbs for every unit on average. The average amount of orbs you need to pull these units will be about 150. Some people will get less, some people will require more. That's just the nature of gambling and gacha, right? As an actual game design perspective, I'm glad that they've balanced both males and females on this. I'm glad they've added beyond just Xander and Ryoma on here, and they've had Elincia and Micaiah a chance to have a seasonal ult. And I think in the future, half a year down the road, they'll show up as seasonals on the legendary banner, and that'll be a great time to pick them up, you know, while pulling maybe for a legendary hero that might come out at that time. I'm personally going to be skipping, but I look forward to getting them in the future, especially as everybody knows about my summer Xander memes, so I'm gonna enjoy doing some of this. Alright, anyways, please tell me what you think about these units in the comments below. Maybe who you're targeting. Are you gonna wait? Are you still holding your orbs for Choose Your Legends or another legendary banner down the road? Is Celica or Micaiah possibly gonna show up on the legendary banners coming up? Will Alm finally get his time to shine? Are there gonna be Shadows of Elincia or Beast units coming up? Please let me know what you're looking forward to in the future. If you liked the stuff that we see on the channel, be sure to give it, a big thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see some more educational stuff and content, okay? Love you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.